Hello, thank you for tuning into this 2024 primary election candidate forum for the Legislative District 2 Senate position. This forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston and Pierce counties in collaboration with Thurston Community Media. The League of Women Voters is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government. But we are always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public to defend our democracy and empower voters. I am Allyson Brooks with the League, and I will be moderating this forum. Sandy Novack will be our timer. Each district elects a senator to Washington State's legislative branch. The legislature is bicameral and is composed of the House of Representatives and the state Senate. The legislature determines the level and means by which citizens will be taxed, writes and modifies Washington state law, regulates other branches of state government, and helps Washingtonians to understand and work with state government. There are two candidates participating in this forum, Rhonda Litzenberger and Erasmo Ruiz Gonzalez. Jim McCune was invited but declined to participate. For this forum, each candidate will have the opportunity to answer a series of questions. We will call on candidates by reverse alphabetical order. They will take turns being the first one to answer the questions. Each question will relate to one subject only, and candidates should answer the questions posed. Candidates will also give a 1-minute closing statement. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. If you need me to repeat the question, don't hesitate to ask. The timer will turn yellow when you have 15 seconds left, and then will show a stop sign when your time is up. If you don't notice the sign, I will tell you when your time is up. We stress the importance of civility in our forums. Candidates, you each have received the ground rules for the forum and have agreed to abide by them. Beginning with Erasmo Ruiz Gonzalez, the first question is there action the legislature should take to stabilize the cost of rent?
Well, thank you so much for that question. And yes, I think that rental prices and just housing in general is way too unaffordable for working class families, our students, our veterans, our senior citizens that are on fixed incomes. And so I do think that the legislature in some ways needs to step in to provide some sort of regulation to stabilize rent increases and also to build more affordable housing, which we can accomplish with private and public partnerships and collaborating with developers and nonprofits to build affordable housing that's also sustainable for working class people and folks who are on fixed incomes. And there's a lot of different models for affordable housing, such as mobile home parks, tiny home villages. So there's options, and I think that we need to explore every possible option that we can to stabilize rent for our working class families.
Thank you. Rhonda, you have 1 minute to answer the question. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please repeat the question.
The question is there action the legislature should take to stabilize the cost of rent?
I think one of the most important things that the legislature could do to help with affordability of rent is to stop passing legislation that muddies the water and creates a lot of bureaucracy that's causing rents to increase. Housing affordability is definitely an issue. There's also been a lot of legislation that has pushed small home landowners out of the rental business because they no longer can afford to pay the mortgage on their homes, as well as having tenants not paying their rent. So there's a lot that can go into it, but affordable housing is going to be definitely one of them. Making sure that we're working with our nonprofit partners to see that they are adequately funded and have the resources that they need is also one of them. But being thoughtful and compassionate as a legislator is going to be really important.
Thank you. Okay, beginning with Rhonda, you get the next question to start. The next question is, automobile traffic is a growing problem in our area. What would be your preferred method to address congested roads and highways? 1 minute.
It is a significant problem in the 2nd Legislative District, which is interesting because we are primarily rural. However, there are hubs where there's significant congestion. And in those areas, the state and Representative Barkas has done a really good job of helping to bring transportation funding into those areas to create some roundabouts. We do know, however, that there's going to be a significant and very expensive I-5 corridor bridge replacement that needs to take place, and that's going to be federally, state, and locally funded. We are going to have to make sure that we are represented as the 2nd, that our voices are heard, that we're partnering with Department of Ecology as well as Nisqually Tribe and Conservancy to make sure that that transition is funded and that it is also done in an environmentally sound way.
Thank you. Erasmo, you are next. Do you need me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for that question. I do think that in the 2nd Legislative District, we've been underserved for far too long under the current delegation that's in the state legislature. We need more public transit options, which I think that would also help relieve the traffic congestion that is becoming a nightmare for many of our constituents. And so we shouldn't be in this situation in particular if we followed the Growth Management Act and developers actually followed what is written in the law and we stopped breaking that particular law. So I think that we need to stick to the Growth Management Act and ensure that we're not overly developing in areas that cannot sustain that level of development. And so I think that's also one of the big issues is that areas have been developed left and right without any regard for traffic impact statements or environmental impact statements. And so that's such a disservice, and that's what's caused this mess that we're currently in with traffic.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, beginning with Erasmo. The 3rd question is, what role, if any, do you see for the state government in reproductive health care?
Well, I am 100% pro-choice. I actually am endorsed by Planned Parenthood. And I think that as a legislature and as a government, we need to safeguard that right for women. The decision, reproductive health care is a decision that is between a woman and their doctor. We need to keep, that is a decision that is for the person and their doctor. And so we need to ensure that we are protecting a woman's right to choose, and I am 100% pro-choice.
Thank you. Rhonda?
Would you repeat the question, please?
The question is, what role, if any, do you see for the state government in reproductive health care?
Well, I think the voters of Washington have clearly spoken, and as a person who respects voters' rights, then I would continue to support what the voters have said. That being said, I believe in the sanctity of life. I also know that there are circumstances in a woman's life that make it incumbent upon them to make really difficult choices, and those discussions are between them, their families, and their doctors, and I believe that they are the only ones that should be able to make that choice as well.
Thank you. Okay, returning to Rhonda, the next question is, what are your views on diversity, equity, and inclusion? Your 1 minute.
Thank you. I believe that as we educate our children to show kindness and grow in character and empathy, that those are really the things that we're trying to develop when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the 2nd Legislative District, it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we look at all areas, not just, socioeconomic is a great part of the diversity that we see. There's a lot of very poor rural communities that we also need to support. So looking at all aspects of inclusionary practices is going to be important to us. And I do believe that teaching those qualities and character are going to be the most important and life-changing things that we can do, particularly for the next generation. But I want to make sure that we balance the work that we're doing with the amount of money that we're spending on the practice. So making sure that we're being thoughtful about the budgetary expenses around it.
Thank you. Erasmo, you are next.
Thank you so much for that question. And I am a strong supporter of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that especially students of color in particular, they want to see themselves reflected in the people that teach and mentor them in schools. I think that helps motivate them and inspire them. And with that said, I am a strong advocate for everyone. So I am running for this position to advocate for our working class families, our veterans, our students, and farmers, quite frankly. And so that my decisions will be guided by my values of family, integrity, and honesty. And so that is always going to be at the forefront of all my decisions and legislation. And I will always listen to the needs of my constituents and keep an open door policy for them to share their concerns. I am running to represent everyone, even if they don't vote for me. I will be there. I will stand up for them. Just how I've stood up for vulnerable foster youth for more than a decade. That's how hard I will fight for all of our constituents in the 2nd LD.
Thank you. Okay, beginning with Erasmo, the 5th question is, if passage of Initiative 2109 repeals the capital gains tax, what alternatives would you support to fund K-12 education, early learning, and childcare?
Thank you for that question. And I am someone that will preserve the capital gains tax and the Climate Commitment Act. And there's already a lot of great revenue streams in our state. We have lottery tax revenue and cannabis tax revenue, and those are revenue streams that we can tap into and redirect into funding our schools more adequately. Our schools should be fully funded. It's our constitutional duty, and it's in the Constitution of this state that the state needs to fund K-12 education at 100%. And so it's such a disservice that we're only funding it at 42%. And so when I'm elected, I am going to redirect those resources from those revenue streams into our schools so that we don't have to rely on bonds and levies that burden working class families, veterans, and senior citizens on when they are taxed more through bonds and levies.
Rhonda, you are next. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
If passage of Initiative 2109 repeals the capital gains tax, what alternatives would you support to fund K-12 education, early learning, and childcare?
It is true that the Constitution of Washington State prioritizes education. It is the paramount duty and responsibility. And just 4 years ago, it was over 50% of our spending and has declined to 42% at this point. I believe that it's a reprioritization of the money that we currently have that's going to be necessary. I believe that there's ample funds to prioritize in this regard. Small and rural schools in particular are impacted by this. I'm the chair for Washington School Board Association's Small School District Advisory Committee. And in that capacity, I travel around to all 198 small and rural schools in the state. And I have heard that just the increasing rate in insurance is causing some small schools to fire teachers. So it's a broad reprioritization, but also passing legislation that's going to help with inflationary costs.
Thank you. Okay, next question, beginning with Rhonda. The final question is, how would you address the need for more behavioral health services? 1 minute.
We do need behavioral health services in all aspects of government, not just in education, but I believe we need it in our juvenile detention areas. Western State is in dire need of being supported and regenerated. Again, it's a prioritization and looking at reciprocity across state boundaries so that we can bring in practitioners from other areas that can practice in this area. Again, funding for schools is going to be an important part in the 2nd Legislative District because we do not have adequate practitioners or rural health provided in most of our small communities. So schools are going to be the primary funding mechanism. There was a little bit of work done in that area this year in the legislature, but it needs to change and it needs to be increased.
Thank you. Erasmo, you are next. You have 1 minute.
Thank you for that question. And as a mental health professional myself, I am a strong advocate for mental health access. And I think that it is our paramount duty in the state legislature to earmark funds for nonprofits and organizations that offer mental health services and counseling services. I think it is our duty to ensure that that we have mental health services for everyone that needs them. Mental health is a crisis that is currently affecting our society. Our students are really struggling with anxiety and depression, and teen suicides are record high. In the Bethel School District, we recently had a student that committed suicide, and so we need more adequate funding for mental health services and counseling services. And when I'm elected, I will ensure that we are earmarking funds for nonprofits and organizations that offer mental health services. And I also will advocate for more training and educational opportunities for mental health provider training.
Thank you. You now have 1 minute for a closing statement, beginning with Erasmo. 1 minute, Erasmo.
Thank you. So, as I said, I'm a mental health professional and educator, and I am running for this seat because I want to restore civility and statesmanship, which has been missing for far too long in this seat. We have an extremist senator that is not serving our constituents the way that they should be. And I am going to be there fighting for everyone, not just the people that voted for me. I'll be fighting for everyone. I'll be accessible and open, and I will listen. I'm reasonable. I'm common sense. And I humbly ask for your support. We need new energy and a fresh perspective in the state Senate. We need someone like me that has lived experiences as a working class person, as someone that's a first-time homeowner. We need those lived experiences in the state legislature. We cannot continue electing multimillionaires and career politicians into positions of power.
Thank you. Rhonda, you have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Thanks. My commitment to the 2nd Legislative District is rooted in a legacy that started 6 years before Washington was a state, when my family homesteaded here. I was raised in the 2nd Legislative District. I've raised my children there, and I want to make sure that my grandchildren can afford to live in the 2nd Legislative District. They need to be able to purchase a home. They need to be able to put food on their table, put gas in their gas tank. They need to be able to afford health care, and they need to feel safe in the communities where they work and where they play. Police officers need to be able to do the jobs, and prosecutors need to be able to do the jobs that they were hired to do. We need to make sure we're protecting housing affordability. I will work to eradicate the natural gas ban. We do need a fresh perspective in the legislature. We need someone who will stand up, show up, and speak up on behalf of the 2nd Legislative District. I've been honored to be endorsed by Representative J.T. Wilcox, Senator John Braun, Mayor Joe DePinto, Mayor David Boblitz, and former Senator Randy Becker.
Thank you. And thank you, Rhonda, and thank you, Erasmo, for participating in this candidate forum. We thank our partner, TC Media, for producing and airing it. We are indebted to TC Media for years of making these forums happen and educating the voters. We encourage our viewers to be a voter in the upcoming election on August 6th. Every vote counts. Ballots for military personnel will be mailed on June 21st, and all other ballots will be mailed out around the 17th of July, and you may register to vote up to the election day. Thank you for watching this 2024 Primary Candidate Forum.